Cool.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
So the last time you saw us, we were just arriving into the UK. We're actually in the UK.
Yeah, so we're staying at my parents' house. They're actually on holiday. Had the last few weeks just seeing family and friends and stuff. We're supposed to be leaving here tomorrow to go and see Dave's sister. Unfortunately, I got COVID on Sunday, so we haven't been able to see my sister or Dave's sister.
No, it's one of those things that could have happened at any point. Just so happens it, happened when we were going to go see his family. So spoke to them, made the decision to obviously kind of avoid contact. We're here alone. I'm still fine.
And thankfully, my 10 days are up the day before that we're supposed to fly to Thailand.
Yeah. So all going well. Shouldn't affect us in the long run. But yeah, so we've been in the UK. In the meantime, we saw your folks, my folks. We've driven from the south to where we are now in Lincoln.
Seen my nan, we've seen some friends.
But it's
Been to a baby shower.
We had a barbecue with some friends. It's been good. It's been nice and quick. It's all gone very quickly. We've also managed to sell the bike, which is really good. We managed to get a really good price for it. It was a little sad to see it go, but the new owner was a really nice guy. I think he'll, look after it well. Hope he enjoys it, because we certainly did.
Yeah, so we just wanted to do a video just recapping kind of what we've been doing for the last 3 months, where we went, budget, that sort of thing. So, yeah. So yeah, we spent the last 3 months in Europe, spent 85 days in total because we had 90-day limit because of Brexit. We were touring around on our big Burgman scooter with all our luggage and some panniers, just stopping at different hostels, hotels and house sitting along the way. So yeah, do you want to tell people where we went?
We actually went into Holland to start with before we kept going towards Germany. So we spent a couple of weeks in Berlin, then headed towards the Czech Republic via Spreewald. After that, we went into Slovakia, then up into Poland until we reached North Polish border with the ferry into Sweden.
Yeah, so then we had a house sit in Sweden and then we worked our way down Sweden and then got another little ferry over to the northern German coast. Went along the northern German coast with all the beaches. Then we had to hightail it a bit on some motorways to catch up with ourselves after getting stuck in Hamburg for a bit. And then we ended up back in the Netherlands for a few weeks at the end of our trip.
Yeah, so we kind of did a big loop round. Total we covered about 3,500 miles, so it's about 5,500 kilometers. And that was averaging about 80 to 100 miles kind of on the travel days. We tended to take it a bit easy, avoided motorways and avoided kind of larger roads when we could, because the back roads are a bit more interesting and it means you get to see a bit more. It's also just not why we travelled that way originally.
No. And you worked out that it's pretty much the exact distance from London to New York that we travelled, which is fun.
Pretty much within less than 50 miles. No, it was a really good trip, and I'm glad we took the route we did.
Yeah, the time we took the route we did because of trying to make it a bit cheaper, so that's why we went into Eastern Europe, because we were on a very tight budget that we'll get to in a minute, and it also dictated by the weather and the house sits. But yeah, it was really interesting, lots of different places that we covered.
Yeah.
So yeah, we travelled in March, so it's not the ideal time for a bike trip, but it was because it was shoulder season in Europe, which meant it was a bit cheaper because we were working with really tight budget. And also we knew that we wanted to travel more towards Asia and New Zealand later on, but because of COVID things just weren't quite open yet, so we knew we wanted to go somewhere, and Europe seemed like the obvious place. Obviously that had its downsides at points because we got caught in rain and we got caught in snow at points, but most of the time we did get quite good weather.
Yeah, for the time of year that we were going and for some of the locations, we actually really lucked out. As Alex said, we had the hit of snow, which meant we had to bunker down in Slovakia for a few days.
Yeah, that was probably like the biggest disappointment for me, because I really wanted to explore Slovakia because I'd heard a lot of good things about it, but it was just rainy and snowy the whole time that we were there, so we had to get out pretty quickly and head back to Poland. So that would definitely be somewhere that we'd like to explore another time.
Yeah, Slovakia is definitely on the list. Kind of the other disappointment, which whilst we're talking about that, is some of the places that were just kind of overly touristy, and even, you know, post-COVID, the fact that somewhere like Prague, for example, was it was just too much.
It's very, very touristy compared to the other places in Czech Republic that we drove through, which were actually equally as beautiful, but with no one there. Another downside to obviously that time of year is that a lot of Europe opens up again in the summer, so a lot of the things that we tried to go to were often closed. That was helpful for our budget because we didn't spend money, but a lot of the time we went around being like, oh, that'd be really nice in the summer.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, that'd be a really nice experience when it was sunny and everyone's outside. But no, it was kind of, we always knew that was going to be an option, and unfortunately, like, it's not something you can change just because there's no, like, tourism is a really important thing, and we obviously are tourists ourselves. But no, it was, overall, there was very little negatives in the trip. We had a few, you know, bike breakdowns, and we had a few things like that which cost money, but at the end of the day it doesn't impact the trip in that sense.
But we both said that we wouldn't really change too much about like the setup that we had or the route we took or even the time of year that we went, because it worked for us.
No, yeah, the Burgman was the right call. Everything has kind of positives and negatives, but we had endless storage. One thing we did say was, because we managed to pack it so tightly and we were so kind of precise with our packing, it meant we couldn't really add anything. So, and because of the style of the bike, it didn't allow us to strap anything to it. We couldn't add any extra size. You know, there wasn't anything that we could just bungee on. There was no room for it.
No, we couldn't buy anything extra as like a souvenir really, and like even with the layers that we needed to take off, sometimes that was quite tight.
Yeah, you take off a jacket and you have to like stuff it under something, and then it doesn't close properly. So it was a bit of a struggle here and there, but overall I think we did actually really well, and it was the right call.
Yeah. So something we get asked quite a lot by people when we've been going around is kind of what our favourite places or experiences have been, which we've had to think about quite a lot because we just enjoyed so much of it.
Yeah, once you've been going for anything longer than a couple of weeks, it's not that it all melds together, but your experiences of highs and lows kind of blend into one another.
And majorly you just enjoying riding around and the freedom that the bike brings you as well. For me, some of my favourite things were the water park in the old aircraft hangar in Germany was really fun and really cool. The Swiss National Park in the Czech Republic I had never heard of before this trip, and it was beautiful, and just driving generally in the Czech Republic was amazing. Yeah, that was an unexpected kind of completely, especially for me, because I obviously was riding the bike, whereas Alex was kind of dictating where we were going quite a lot of the time. So she saw the name and everything, but so she put me in a direction. I went that way and ended up through some of the kind of more spectacular driving that we did or riding. So it was very impressive and unexpected. Yeah, the other things for me were like driving generally through Poland was really pleasant. The roads were amazing and there was great scenery, great food, and the nature in Sweden, particularly like Stockholm near where we were, was just stunning. It was beautiful. Yeah, we had some like amazing nature walks that just felt entirely different. Just the actual environment of these huge cliff faces, along with kind of the water being everywhere. It was a really nice environment to be around. So for me, the other things were just riding in Sweden in general. As soon as you're off the motorway, which it was just really windy, so you felt a bit battered by the end of it. But as soon as you're off the motorway, it was just so much. The roads were just kind of perfect. Like, they were well maintained, windy, but you're going through some beautiful areas. Some really nice kind of, slightly off the beaten path. So it was properly windy and back and forth, but it just overall some of kind of my favorite riding that we did. Another kind of unexpected thing for me was the beaches in North Germany. Yeah, they were stunning. As soon as we went over the border from Sweden to Germany by the ferry, you come off and you drive off
and suddenly you're surrounded by some of the most spectacular beaches I've seen in Europe. And they were empty, obviously. Like, we lucked out with the weather, it was warm enough.
Yeah. Some of the whitest sand I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it was just, they felt very undiscovered besides the Germans, and that was quite fun. I also, Holland was great in terms of the kind of overall vibe. The only problem with Sweden we had was people are quite reserved and very kind of self-focused, whereas in the UK you tend to greet people as you walk past, whereas that would be kind of seen as an encroaching on someone's kind of personal space, which is, they're very friendly, but it's just an extra barrier, whereas in Holland everyone's very similar to the UK in terms of just being just kind of outwardly pleasant just walking past people. And that was a nice kind of culture change. And then finally for us it was, well, for me it was also just having the interactions with the dogs that we had. The house sitting experience, which we'll go into actually in another video, because we've had a lot of questions about that, really sold us on the idea, and being able to kind of feel like a local with the dog in places that weren't like high tourist areas. That was a really nice, enjoyable thing. Any excuse to play with the dog is always going to be a good one, and you're getting a free accommodation for it, and you get to play with the dog. It's kind of a win-win. So another big question we get asked is to do with our budget. Anytime someone's doing any kind of long-term travel, budget is obviously on the forefront of everyone's mind, but we had pretty tight budget all told. So we wanted to try to keep to our general budget for what will be over like the next 2 years really. So we've got savings that we've broken down, so we kind of gave ourselves about 2,500 for the 3 months that we were in Europe. That worked out as about 560 for the 3 months for fuel. Which, surprisingly, given the nature of everything, we actually were under budget on fuel. We actually got that perfect. Thankfully, we were on a motorcycle. We also had the same for food, which we definitely went over by a good few £100, if not more, because we had some extra euros. And then accommodation, we'd initially budgeted about 1,400 for the 3 months, which worked out about 40 a night, taking into consideration that we had basically a month's worth of accommodation not accounted for because we were house sitting. We ended up spending about 1,800 on accommodation, so a bit over on that, just where we had to double book because of certain places and just situations with the bike and things. And also like Sweden and northern Germany ended up being like 60, 70 quid a night minimum. There wasn't really anywhere that we could find that was cheaper than that, and that was in shoulder season as well. No, it's just a different, it's one of the reasons we took the route we did, so we could take advantage of the cheaper cost of living there. Places there, sometimes we could spend about 20 quid a night, so it balanced out with some of the places later down the line that were more expensive. The other thing we had to account for was obviously our ferries. That was a big cost. That ended up being about £485 in total, but that was for the ferry to Europe, from Poland to Sweden, Sweden to Germany, and then from the Netherlands back to the UK again. And each of those, it did include like the cost for the bike and for cabins for the overnight ones. So in total it was about, as a rough guide, it was about 3,600 plus that we spent. We haven't tallied up exactly everything, but that's a rough kind of range. And obviously that was for just about 3 months of accommodation, like the traveling, living. We've actually sold the bike that we bought for a little under what we paid for it, to accommodate the extra mileage we put on it, but we actually got a really good sale price for it, so that helps a lot, and that kind of went back into our savings. But no, it's been a nice challenge, and there were definitely moments where we could have easily spent a lot more, but we still allowed ourselves. We still spent money where we probably, if we were really scrimping and saving, we wouldn't have done. But you have to enjoy it as well, and try and actually eat local food and go out and enjoy your time there. You can't cook for yourself the entire time. No, there's only so many times you want a pot noodle. And then... or noodles from a saucepan. Cup ramen, or a microwave sausage. But sometimes you have to do that to kind of, realise what... balance it out. You can use the money elsewhere for. But no, it was... I think our budget was fairly reasonable, and that you could definitely do it for cheaper if you were doing a different kind of motorbike trip and you were, say, camping. that, you know, that would be a huge budget change. You could even camp and then go out for restaurants for the same amount of money and really enjoy it. But no, I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, we always knew we were going to go over that budget anyway, because Europe's so much more expensive than places like Asia.
Yeah. So finally, kind of breaking down like some of the best rides that we actually had on the trip, because that was a huge proponent of why we went. Sweden, as I said earlier, massive highlight in terms of kind of the overall riding as soon as you're off the motorway. The roads are clean, the kind of, you know, just the nice and clear. There's a good sense of speed without being crazy.
There's not a lot of traffic on the roads there either, because there's so much space.
No,
which
like,
makes a difference.
It's definitely a good place for bikers to go. We also both really enjoy some of the riding in Poland. That was kind of, again, a bit unexpected. Some of the kind of the routes we took just had some fantastic landscapes. Like, we weren't as lucky with kind of some of the riding days in terms of weather when we were in Poland, but even still they were that, you know, impressive. And there's something to be said about driving through a bunch of snow on a scooter. And like North Germany, around the beaches and all that, it was, again, visually spectacular. I actually don't... Germany is a bit odd to ride in, because people are either staunchly on the speed limit or quite happy to go like round you at a ridiculous speed. And this isn't even on the Autobahn, that's a whole different thing. And then kind of the other, as we said, a highlight was the rides all around the Bohemian Swiss National Park, which that was, I think, probably the most visually impressive riding we did in terms of the landscape around us, in terms of sheer cliff faces. The sun was shining. It was like, it was just an unexpected highlight that was just like, by the end of the day, we both had massive smiles on our faces, and that's just from getting from A to B.
Yeah.
But
that's what a lot of this trip was, though. It was just about the ride more than anything.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a recap of the last 3 months of our lives. In total, we made 30 videos kind of showcasing everything, which is about close to 7 hours worth of edited footage, which been...
Check out below.
Yeah, it's been a really enjoyable kind of experiment and thing to do. We're going to continue it. We're going to keep it going. It's been nice to get some feedback that we have, and how it's going to change and adapt now that we don't have a bike moving forward. It's going to be interesting. So if you have any, you know, interesting ideas, obviously feel free to message us and leave comments. But yeah, I think if you ever get a chance to quit your jobs after a global pandemic and get on the back of a motorbike, I think you should.
Yeah.
A lot of people think that we were crazy and that we still are crazy, and they're probably right.
Yeah.
But when you have that kind of urge that just doesn't shift after 2 years of remaining sedentary in a house, I think we couldn't not go.
No.
So it's been
a really exciting new challenge.
Yes. Yeah, and it's kind of, it was a bit of a baptism by fire in terms of like riding a bike from passing a test to then going on a 3,500 mile road trip. But, you know, I think it worked out. We're still here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, please keep watching. We've got plenty more adventures ahead of us. As Alex said, we have 2 years.
Yeah, so we're going to do another video on reviewing trusted house sitters, and then we'll tell you our plan for upcoming adventures. Yeah, so subscribe so you know when the videos come out.
And we'll see you in the next one.